Welcome to this edition of the $1 Million Mastermind Podcast. This is where we pick the brains of high achievers from all walks of life and get their hard-earned, real-world insights on winning. I'm your host, Larry Weidel. I'm talking with Chris Volk, and now Chris has had one success after another in business because he took the time to get educated, to study, figure things out, and then work on a pattern, follow winning patterns. That's what I kind of see with you. You had a logical approach. You got in a position where you could analyze companies, and that's how you wound up with a value equation book. But you talk about 4 years at Georgia State, part-time, going down there to get your MBA. That's a slog, driving downtown through the Atlanta traffic and going to class for 4 years. You were a determined young man at the time. What led you up to that point, Chris, when what got you up to that point to where now I'm going to go get my MBA? This is an essential next step for me, enough to where you did 4 years of putting yourself through the price.
So I'm going to just talk a little broader than that. I mean, when you interview a bunch of CEOs or business leaders, one of the things that they all have in common, most likely, is that they just all worked really, really hard to get where they are. Actually, they almost worked stupidly hard to get where they are, and you might have done exactly the same thing. And you go, what drives these people to work so stupidly hard? I wasn't the guy who was sitting there waking up every day saying, what's my work-life balance kind of stuff. I was just working all the time. And so what causes somebody to do that? And I would say in my case, it's that I graduated from college in the middle of a recession, big recession. It was 1979, 1980, which is pretty much about as bad as 2008 or 9. It was, and we were getting to hyperinflation. Prime rate was hitting 21%, and I had a European history and French degree, and not a single business class. And
what was that? What was that again?
I had a European history and French degree.
That was going to prepare you for a lot of success in business.
Well, I would say for those people chuckling on the phone, I would say the good thing about that kind of stuff is it teaches you how to write, and it teaches you also that the world doesn't necessarily work right. It's not linear, and there's a lot of ambiguity. And oftentimes I find with people that major in just business, they sometimes don't work. They sometimes don't write very well, don't present well, have a hard time convincing people of other ideas, and they somehow think the world is fairly linear, and it's all going to work just perfect, But of course it doesn't. None of this stuff happens. So if I got something out of my liberal arts degree, that was it. But and also an understanding of how to learn, keep learning. But anyway, so I get out of college and I apply to companies. And back in 1979, there's no email. There's no nothing. I would go down to the public library. I would look up companies, find out who they were, what they did. I would send out letters to them, and I had to hand type every one of them, and then they'd have to hand type them back to me. And I basically came up with 300 rejection letters somewhere in that neighborhood. And so I realized that I wasn't all that important, and 300.
Wow! Yeah, congratulations. Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah. That's doing it big. Yeah.
Oh no, I did it big. And the thing was that I was so desperate by the time I was getting like the 300th or 250th of them that I probably would have almost taken any job. Like I was, I just needed a job pretty badly. And so I ultimately decided I was the best thing that happened to me in a way. If I got lucky, and then one of the biggest lucky things that happened to me was that I got turned down, and I had a chance to sort of sit back and think, okay, what do I want to do? I decided that what I was going to do is I was going to work selling clothing at a men's clothing store, and I was going to start putting myself through business school. And I started taking accounting classes at night. And my goal was to work for a commercial bank, because if I could work for a commercial bank, my view was that, I might like banking, but the next thing was I would learn a lot about business, and I knew nothing about business. And I came to realize I just knew nothing. And so my 300 rejection letters showed me I know nothing. And so I was able to get a bank convinced to hire me. It was a regional bank in Atlanta, Georgia. And I worked there for 6 years. And when I worked there, I worked stupidly hard. I went to business school at night till 10 o'clock at night. I became a financial analyst. I became a credit geek. I became really good at reading financial statements, which I'm still good at. And along the way, I decided that banking had been fun, but I wanted to go do something else. And one of our customers had been a company that did real estate investing, and but they were really a finance type company, having these tenants that were fast food franchisees at the time, and they needed to have somebody put up their money for their fast food restaurants. So they just didn't have enough, and they couldn't borrow the money easily. So so this company was based in Arizona, and I was 29 years old, so I packed up my bags with my wife, and Hollis and I moved out to Arizona, and moved there in '86. And from there, I was able to ultimately help take that company public, and then I started 2 other public companies. So, and I was president or CEO of all of them, and on the board of directors.
And it seems like a big jump, or a smooth jump, to where you're working there, and then all of a sudden you're the natural CEO choice at all of these companies.
Yeah, well, life doesn't always work that way. But I would say with the first company that I did, we had an issue where we ran out of money to invest in the late '80s, and so another gentleman and myself were given the opportunity to go out and raise capital from pension funds, and we didn't know really what we were doing at all. But it was a tremendous opportunity, and I learned an awful lot from it. And I also gained a lot of relationships with pension fund investors, and I learned what they were interested in. And as I'm doing this, I realized that perhaps the best opportunity for the company at the time was to take our assets and list them on the New York Stock Exchange. So I went into the gentleman who's the CEO at the time, and I said, I think we should just take all of our assets and list them. And ultimately, that's what we did. And it took 2 years, and I led the process. So, like a lot of CEOs, I got the job because I was the guy who had the solutions. So, and I came up with a solution for the business, and then knew how to run it after that. And we ran it up until the time we sold it to GE Capital in 2001. And it was the largest U.S. real estate investment trust that did leased assets to on real estate to middle market companies. And I was at GE for 1.5 years and left to start with a gentleman from our first company. He and I started the second company, and took that one public. And then later on, I had a team of other folks, and I started a third.
Well, you went through 300 rejections, but were you applying for positions using your history and literature degrees, or just anything?
Oh, it's anything. I mean, I was applying to advertising agencies because I could write okay, and I had some experience with publications. I was sending money to, sending resumes to publishing shops, Time Magazine, Newsweek. I even had resumes going out to Ralston Purina. I mean, I'm not sure I would have done it Ralston Purina, but I mean, mean, it's 300 resumes, Larry. So it's a lot, so you're covering the waterfront. Um, and, and I was trying my hand at a lot of different stuff because I didn't know really what I was really interested in.
This probably was a good experience in terms of formative thing for helping you sort through, be exposed to the waterfront and see what you liked more than others, that you had the most curiosity about,
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I realized that I knew so little that I needed to go into a place where I could get some training and some guidance. And so banks almost universally had training programs at the time. And so I joined one of those kinds of training programs, and I was adamant on being on the commercial side.
Let me ask you this. How, people will take that for granted, but a lot of people don't realize they need more training. And like you said, but the light bulb went on. You didn't just say, well, the economy's down. That was it. You realized that, or you came to the conclusion, I need more training, and I need to get in the bank. Because a lot of people would just don't think in terms of, like, I've been to school, this, that, the other, woe is me, what can I do? But you said, I need more training. What do you think propelled you to that conclusion, other than couldn't get a job?
Yeah, well, when you're writing 300 resumes and you're realizing that you don't really know how to sell yourself, and you don't really understand how you can add value to the businesses you're applying to, that you realize that basically you have a void of knowledge. And so at the time I went to the bank, I was getting a little bit better at selling myself. And I remember meeting with a banker, and he's looking at my resume. And I should tell you that, like, my summer job experience was also kind of interesting. So I've been bartender in Germany. I was worked in a hotel in Switzerland one summer. I worked on a cargo ship going to Africa one summer.
Really?
So the guy interviewing me looks at me and says, "Well, this is just an amazing resume. What does it have to do with banking?" And I said, "Well, I said, I'm perfect for banking. I said, banking is a generalist thing. I mean, most of you guys in banking know a little bit about a lot of stuff." I said, "That's perfect for me." I like learning about a lot of stuff. And so I can absolutely do this. And so that's basically probably the line that helped me get the job at the time. And over the years, I'm still a little bit of a generalist, but I've kind of specialized a little bit more. I've gotten pretty deep into the finance piece of it, but I still have a broad sense of interest in all businesses.
Yeah, that was pretty clever, by the way. Congratulations. Really, if you look back on it, Chris, that opened the door. That response, all of that you'd put yourself through to get to the point where you had enough confidence, had enough insight to be able to bounce back with that answer, really set up the rest of your life, don't you think?
It did. And I try to pay it back too to kids today. I interview kids. I try to give them assistance, help. I interview kids that are applying to the college I attended. We've hired, when I was leading the company, I hired no end of interns, just because I think it's really important. And by the way, I had a weakness for liberal arts graduates. I mean, I would hire people that didn't necessarily always major in finance or accounting. I mean, sure. Even though we were sort of a finance related company, because I found I could teach them that. What I couldn't teach them was, I couldn't teach them how to write, and I couldn't teach them how to think, and I couldn't teach them how to solve problems. I mean, that was a more abstract skill set, and I couldn't really teach that so well. But I certainly couldn't teach them a work ethic. So if I found somebody that had a work ethic and had the ability to present and write and think, I tended to have a weakness for those kinds of people.
Yeah, fantastic insights. Thanks so much for spending your time, and that's what I'm that's what we do here, Chris, is create a venue where people can get exposure to these kinds of behind the scenes insight that, because I'm sure a lot, when you're a CEO, you're in a leadership position, you can be around people for 20 years and they really don't hear these kinds of conversations or hear what you have, because when you're talking to them, it's about solving a problem, launching a new project, dealing with an issue. And these kind of things don't always come up, the behind the scenes attitudes. And also, I appreciate you sharing. I know the book's going to do well. And what's next? What's coming next, man? You're a high energy guy, and you're sitting on a boatload of information. What you going to do, man?
I don't know. I'm going to think about this. I'm going to do I'm spending a lot of time promoting the book right now because I think it's just it's a mission. This is not something I'm making any money off of, but it's a mission.
Right.
I think it'll help a lot of people. I think it'll improve people's understanding of business. I think it provides information to business in a way that's never been provided to people. So it'll help change the dialogue. And then, I have some ideas for starting a business, and it just depends on how much I want to work. I'm not sure I want to do 100 hours a week anymore, so I've been doing 100 hours a week a long time, so part of this is going to be trying to figure out how I can work in a different time bandwidth than I have been used to.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that, and you will do that. Let's face it, you will. You got too much energy to be bored or to go around and look at the scene, the sights, or fool with the sand on the beach. It's fun to make things happen, isn't it? You've gotten a lot of enjoyment out of success, because when you are successful, like you say, all the millionaires that were created. There's a ripple effect of positive things that happen when allowing serious people to be successful, and that wealth goes into their lives. They usually wind up doing smart things with it, and it's a ripple. It sets off a chain of positive events. You've got to feel a tremendous amount of satisfaction from the successes you've had.
I do, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to, step back from working and to be able to have time to write a book like this and to give back. I think it's just important. I think it's important that we all make a difference with our lives to the extent we can. And so the value equation is a piece of that.
Thanks so much, Chris. Thanks for listening to the $1 Million Mastermind. If you felt there were any valuable takeaways from this episode, please take a minute and leave us a 5-star review. Your feedback is important and really helps us get the word out to a wider audience. Remember, we have a valuable webinar that is absolutely free. Register for it right now at whitealumwinning.com. Thanks for listening.